Hey everybody, it's Nicole Kaufman here, the Right Therapist. Just coming at you today with some thoughts on what's been happening as late in politics and in society at large. I have to take a break every once in a while and step back. My life is a little scrambled eggs right now. I got a boy graduating from high school. Yay for my boy. I'm so excited for him and relieved and all of the emotions. So sharing a little of my personal life with you, that I just can't believe it. I whipped out a photo album the other day and oh my goodness, this beautiful baby, right? This beautiful baby boy that I had is now all grown up and will enter the United States Air Force in September. And I could not be more proud, y'all. I'm just saying, I am so thrilled that my boy is going to serve our country. And I think that our public school system and our university system needs a bit of an adjustment and needs a bit of a refocusing on what its mission is and what education means. And I'm glad that my kid is not going there straight away. I just don't think that that's his path straight away. I'm not saying never, but right now, I think it'd be a great idea for him to wait 4 years before entering any university system. Not that it's going to be markedly different then, but I think he will be, and he'll be better suited for it at that time. So, yay for graduation this weekend. What I wanted to get into today was just a couple of comments on the Uvalde school shooting. We know a few things at this point. They're not doing an investigation as to the response of law enforcement. And so heads should roll because people are refusing to see what went wrong. And debriefing that response is really the only way that we can learn from it. We do know that the Uvalde law enforcement was actually given a training exercise on school shootings and apparently did not execute their training. So we have definitely a breakdown there. Y'all, 85% of school shootings happen in 5 minutes or less. 5 minutes or less. So in my mind, it's imperative that we really improve the facility. We improve the preparedness of teachers and administrative personnel to respond when something like this happens. Because that is the first line of defense for your children. It's not the law enforcement. You know, oddly enough, law enforcement are called after an incident happens. They're usually not there preemptively. And with the defund police movement that we've had over the last few years, especially in our bluer cities, we have seen a marked decrease in school personnel law enforcement presence. Violence in schools is off the charts. We're not just talking about school shootings. We're talking about kids bringing guns to school, fights, defiance and suspensions with students, and teachers throwing students out of their class. So we've got a real problem here. And at the same time, there have been proposals to up the age of, that you can purchase a firearm to the age of 21. I personally don't agree with this because right now we can allow students or kids to vote at 18. Teenagers, you're considered an adult at 18. In my office, in my therapy office, that is the legal age of consent to therapy. And what that means, if you have an older child who is college age and you are wanting them to go to therapy or urging them to go to therapy, let me give you some inside baseball on that. Couple of things. If they're over 18, they have to contact the therapist to set an appointment. You can't really do it for them. It is their consent at 18 years or older as to whether they want to come to therapy. Now, that is the case in any, unless they are at risk of harming themselves or others, then you can call law enforcement and they will be taken to inpatient. But that's a whole different kettle of fish, right? So if you just want them to come to therapy, 18 years or older, they have to make the appointment to come in. Second of all, 18 years or older, I cannot share with you, I as their therapist cannot share with you the details of the therapy unless your child gives the consent to do so. So that's another line, and I don't care if you're paying for it. The consent laws in this state, and they vary state by state. The consent laws vary as to what I can tell you as far as your child's therapy and what we're discussing goes. Now, again, if the child is at risk, or I say child at 18, I still think they're babies at 18 for the most part. If they are at risk of harming themselves or others, then I will partner with that client to try and make a safety plan, etc. But 18 is considered an adult, y'all. And this school shooter, he did pass a federal background check. So what would it be to put him in place, or what do we need to put in place as far as laws or anything else? Now, I don't really have a problem, I guess, with raising the firearms age purchase to 21, but you'd also have to raise the age of voting to 21, and you'd also need to raise the draft to 21, wouldn't you? If we're going to change what adulthood means in this country, then we can't do it halfway. We would have to change everything to 21. But would that necessarily prevent kids from illegally purchasing guns if that's what they were bent on doing? And from a clinical standpoint, I'm going to say a hard no on that. And the reason I'm saying a hard no is because what we know about this particular individual, first of all, he was psychopathic. He was antisocial. All right. He is not here for me to psychologically evaluate, but given his demonstrated behaviors, that is where I would say he is. This child was failed on several levels leading up to what he perpetrated at the elementary school. All right. Now, let me be very clear that he had a challenging home life. His drug-addled mom apparently gave him to a grandmother to raise. There were limited resources in the house, and Uvalde is apparently a very poverty-stricken area. However, having a challenging home life or an abusive home life does not necessarily create or make or cause people to be psychopathic or antisocial. There is a pattern of, a bit of prevalence, but it doesn't cause that to happen. So just because you know of people who had troubling home lives, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be a broken individual moving forward. And this individual, folks, was broken. And he was broken. Let me just go over the whole antisocial personality disorder for you real quick so that you understand that we're trying to make now public policy for people that are law-abiding citizens. Law-abiding citizens, for the most part, have normal personalities, meaning they have insight. They have self-correcting behaviors. They have a way of dealing with the world that works for them, that makes them productive citizens. This individual was lacking all of those things. He has the basic exclusive operational personality trait of exploitation, of taking advantage of others. The whole shock value in taking a picture of himself with a bag of dead cats. I mean, it's horrible. He was threatening rape and assault on some Tinder for teenagers website. He's threatening rape and assault to girls and individuals. So over and over again, I've got people coming at me on Facebook about why, we need to do something. We just need to do something. And it's killing me, the carping that's being done by this current administration over something needs to be done, because Now the Democrats are so desperate for a talking point to get voters that, oh, if we just do something as far as gun control, then it shows that, you know, we're being sensitive and we'll get more votes that way. And yeah, gun control, man. What makes you think that this child, this individual, would have checked the box that said I've committed violent acts in the last 60 days, or anything that would self-disclose that he was not operating with a full deck, as they say? Would he actually admit the idea that perhaps he was troubled? Clearly not. Clearly. And the core characteristics of an antisocial person is that they view themselves as superior to others. So it goes against their core functioning to actually admit that they're not superior. Actually, they're inferior, and they have limited or decompensated functioning. They're never going to admit that, folks, ever, ever, never. They view others as suckers. Antisocial folks, that's how they see other people. They don't see other people as human or as being able to join with them. They don't. They just don't see people that way. They deal with the world through opportunism, and they come across as really callous. So are we making gun control laws based on trying to prevent these type of people from obtaining a weapon? All right, we might as well whistle in the wind, because these people are going to get a hold of weapons, no matter what rules we put in place. They're going to get a hold of them because they think we're all suckers for even having rules. All right, so I'm just trying to clue you in as to the mindset of antisocial people. Our jails are filled with them, folks. They are absolutely filled with them. And as therapists holding group meetings in prisons, the one thing that we're trying to instill in these people is insight. We're trying to instill in them insight, self-corrective behavior. And basically that's trying to get them to think about their behavior and think about their responses and determine, are these responses appropriate for the situation and for the context? It's a very nuanced way of thinking that in regularly functioning folks happens every day seamlessly. We don't even think about it. In personality disordered people, they lack the capacity to do this. So as adults, we actually try to get them to do what's called meta thinking. That is thinking about thinking. And is this appropriate response? Is this, an over exaggeration, or am I creating drama where really drama doesn't need to be created? Am I problem solving to be a productive citizen at work, at home, or at school? People who have stable personalities have no problem doing this. People who have unstable personalities, it's not like they just forget to do it one day. They don't have the skill. So please understand that when we're trying to create public policy, we don't create the policy based on, let's say, 3.7% of the general population. 3.7% is personality disordered and antisocial. Okay, antisocial personality disorder, maximum 3.7%. 1 out of 5 people has personality disorder. Personality disorder is everything from schizophrenic, or what we call schizotypal, to borderline personality disorder, histrionic. Remember, I did the old episode on Jussie Smollett. He is what I would say to be histrionic, so you can go back and watch that. I don't even pretend to be an expert on personality disorders, but this is so obvious. I mean, it falls straight into the criteria for the DSM. So it's easy to see, but impossible to prevent undiagnosed people from committing these heinous acts when they fall through the cracks for the last 18 years. So this child he lacked resources. He had a drug-addled mom. He was living with grandmother, and just an overall menace in his town and community. But we've stopped trying to take care of our neighbors, haven't we? We've stopped trying to involve the school and other personnel to try and look out or try and do something with these children to help them. All right. And, when a kid's taking a picture of himself with a dead bag of cats, this same child, this Uvalde school shooter, he was cutting. He was demonstrating self-harm, cutting behavior. That on its face right there is a reason to take him into inpatient because he was a danger to himself. He was cutting. So there were lots of things that happened with this child that led up to the events of today. But no, we're not going to address any of that. We're going to try and create policy around bump stocks, around assault rifles, around all of these things that are just so miss the mark in terms of what could have actually helped this person. And any of these gun control public policies are not going to create or prevent this from happening again. It's not going to. And because these people exist, antisocial personality exists, is very prevalent, and everybody in jail, and a large percentage of your homeless population is antisocial personality. They do not follow rules. Rules, public policy, and gun control laws are for law-abiding citizens only. Because if he would have been following the rules, he would have read the sign on the front of the elementary school that said that this was a gun-free zone, turned around and gone home. Because you know what? It's a gun-free zone. I shouldn't be here. He didn't have the insight. He didn't have the self-corrective behavior. It's not part of who he is. So parents, as you raise your children, think out loud as you make decisions. Think out loud as far as being able to impress upon your kids what is correct, right, or wrong, or productive and functional behavior at work, at school, at home. And I would like to say at church, if you're a church-going person. We've got to put standards back in place, and we've got to be able to, think in ways that, okay, if I see a troubled kid in my community, how can I help? What can we do? Any person can call a school and say, I noticed this kid and he's got cuts all over his face. Can something be done? Can a report be made? You may not solve the issue, but you've done something. So I am sure that there are people in the Uvalde area who were concerned about this kid, who knew that this kid was troubled, and are now riddled with regret that they didn't do anything or they didn't say something. It's time to see something and say something with our youth. They're too at risk. So I invite you to, make the calls, see what you can do something to try and help these kids before they get to that point. Now, and I know what you're saying. Well, Nicole, you said he was broken. He's antisocial personality. There's nothing we could do to prevent him. But you know what? Maybe if somebody would have held him in an inpatient mental facility for 30 days, he could have gotten some medication, he could have gotten some counseling, or he could have at least been off the street. So don't think that your phone call or reaching out is going to do nothing. We've got to come together as a community and try and help these kids way before something like this happens. And it's back on us because our public leaders today, they're in a very reactive stance. This is new policy is not proactive, it's just reactive. And this is going to happen again, just like Sandy Hook, just like Columbine, just like the Florida school shooting, and now this. So, and I believe Columbine happened during the assault weapons ban. If I'm not mistaken. So, any of these public policies, when these kids are bent on doing this stuff, they're going to do it. They're going to do it. It's their broken brains that are driving them, not, and the lack of following rules. They're not looking at public policy. They're not trying to say, okay, how can I skirt the rules? Their approach to life is the rules don't apply to me. All right. So we've got to get to a point where we are policing ourselves, we're policing our own communities, and trying to keep our folks safe in a way that makes sense. So that's what I've got for us today, folks. Kind of somber, sorry, but that's where we are. And I, as a clinician, it pains me to hear all of these non-clinical people talking about how this can so easily be prevented with just new rules, when that's just not how it works. It's just not how it works. Remember, 1 out of 5 people is personality disordered, and 1 out of 100 will hurt you, will commit violence. That is 1 out of 100 people. If you were in a large crowd, then you were around some antisocial people probably, and you're around somebody who could possibly or potentially hurt you. So you have to be wary and you have to be safe. So look out for yourself and look out for your community. On that note, have a fabulous weekend. Congratulations to all the graduates out there, and hug your babies. Hug your babies. Thanks, y'all. Have a good one.